Well, hi there. I'm Mike and this is Bella. Now, I've been a photographer for my entire life, as long as I can remember. I started out with this little camera here. I delivered papers for 2 years to buy this camera. So, Super Baldina rangefinder camera. So I moved to a single lens reflex for a time, and then I moved on to this camera here, Leica M4 with Canadian made lenses. Very happy with this camera. In fact, I went to Newfoundland on a trip and I met my wife there, and the very first day we were out together taking pictures, I pressed this camera up to a knothole in a door and I got one of the best pictures, one of the photographs that I like the very most, the inside of a fishing shed. And that picture's been published and I made some prints of it. So over the years, I moved from this camera, I went to different film cameras, I went to Olympus digital camera, bigger lenses, heavier stuff. Come on, Bella, you pay attention now. Keep watching the camera. You come here. Are you getting tired? Is Bella getting tired? Huh? Are you tired? So anyway, we were chasing pictures for our entire life, my wife and I. And Mary said, why don't we get a van so we can travel around and we'll get a double shot. You know, you'll be there at night for the sunset, sunrise in the morning. And you get to cover a lot more ground. Years before that, we camped out in tents. We chased photographs in Percé, all across Canada, camping in, sometimes we motel camped, like we would fly to Vegas and rent an SUV and drive out through the desert. And we couldn't take our puppy with us on trips like that. So we thought with the van, you know, like we could drive, and we have driven across the desert, Arizona, all kinds of different places. We've had a great deal of fun. And I just thought we'd show you how we got the van, what it took to keep it going, and how we spent our last 5 or 6 years traveling around, sometimes 3 to 4 months in the van without coming home. And we got lots and lots of pictures, didn't we, Bella? Oh, yes, we did. We got an awful lot of pictures. And Bella's had a lot of fun camping out. She just loves going in the van. She really does. It's her favorite place to be. Now we wound up with a cat too to take with us, and it takes the cat a couple days to get used to the road, but that's the way it is. Hi, welcome to Bella's Vistas. Well, today I'm wearing my dad's Super Test cap. He wore this back in the 50s, 1957. He got an award from Super Test for Loyal Association. I used to pump gas for my dad there, and it's come in handy, my mechanical experience keeping our van on the road. This is one of our photographs. We photographed this at Ruby Beach in Oregon. Sunset was just about over. I had to wait until things cleared up a bit. A lot of people left and I got a pretty clear shot of the beach here. I think it's wonderful with the trees and the sky and everything. Well, the thing is, we want to hit the road again, but we're going to have to do some work on the van. Not mechanical work so much. Well, I changed the oil and filter. I'm going to change the transmission fluid again. I change those fluids a lot because oil's cheaper than parts, so change your oil. So I hope you're going to come along with us. We're going to show you how we got this van, how we fixed it up, and some of the fun we've had with it. I've had some breakdowns. I was broke down in Broken Head, Manitoba for 3 weeks getting the exhaust fixed. Back and forth with Rock Auto getting parts. So please follow us on Bella's Vistas, and I hope you're going to enjoy the next trip. Well, I don't think we'll have the trip on this video, but we will have the repairs. Thanks for visiting. Well, we went out looking for a van, and we were blessed to find this van. It's beautiful. 1995 Ford E-150 Club conversion van. It had some problems. Needed new spring shackles, needed to have some body panels cut out and replaced. Frank replaced the corners. There's Frank checking out some of the rust. I changed the oil and did some things like that. Here I am changing the oil in the filter. I had a problem with the fuel pump. Here you can see me driving down the road. Look at that gauge bouncing up and down. Wow. It turned out that the fuel pump had gone bad. Not actually the fuel pump itself, but inside the fuel pump housing, there's a couple O-rings that had sort of dissolved, so we had to pull the fuel pump out, and it turned out that the best thing to do was to replace the entire unit with a used unit with low mileage. We had a lot of exhaust problems, so we had to change the muffler. Now we went to the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous in Arizona, Quartzsite, Arizona. So many different vehicles at the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous. Somebody camping out in a semi-truck, somebody with a motorcycle, wow. And a van, solar power, lots of flags. Look, there's a pirate flag. I had a lot of fun there. We were there for about a week. You're in the desert, so it gets a little boring maybe after a while, but there were some wonderful people to meet. Look at the sun's going down. Here we are in Prince Edward Island. I'm parked up alongside the road. We're making coffee. It was so nice and quiet. There was a gentle rain all night. Here I am making my coffee. Look at that. While the coffee's brewing, I always like to check my oil. I make sure that we're always right on the line. If I have to even add half a cup of oil, I do. There's the battery switch for changing from one battery to the other. Now I'm in Fairyland, Newfoundland. I had a serious problem with the power steering. I had to change a power steering pressure line. I used this bucket to catch the fluid, change the line, and then we were out chasing icebergs. That's what we were here for. What a time. Look at the bergs and the waves, sun on the icebergs. Parked up in Stephenville at the Walmart. Look at the snow. You can't really tell from the pictures, but it was brutal. More icebergs. Peggy's Cove for a nice sunset. What a wonderful evening that was. Well, it's not always peaches and cream. Here the van broke down. This piece here, this tension fitting broke. And here Wayne is drilling out the broken piece for me. Drilled that out, and then we went to a friend of his. He had one truck in the yard, and darned if that truck didn't have exactly the piece that we needed. Wayne's buffing up the bolt for this one, so it's good as new. Well, now as you can see, the engine's running just fine again. Got it all back together, getting ready to hit the road again. Northern Lights on Prosperous Lake, Yellowknife, beautiful night, wonderful sky. Just parked at the side of the road. We camped out there and saw Northern Lights. Now we're blasting down the road, some motorcycles along beside us there. We got to see so much of the country. We're driving on the Dempster Highway here, and I see some bison up ahead. So I get as close to them as I think is safe, maybe a little closer. And then I got my camera and I went out and took some pictures. Look at this, here we're getting a little bit closer. That's about it. They can actually attack your vehicle, but these guys, I watched their eyes pretty closely. Look at that, you can see the steam coming off them. There's a good old boy. A few times we crossed the Mackenzie River on these ferry barges. It's pretty simple, you just drive on and drive off and you don't have to pay. But look at that road, hey, that's something to contend with. We cross the Mackenzie, get off the ferry, and we're on the road again. These are some rough roads. We made it to Inuvik. There's the Igloo Church and one of these stone figurines. There's a crankshaft for you. Look at the size of that crankshaft. Now I'm going to get a rude awakening when I get on this ferry here. I thought everything is going along just great. We've seen bison, we've driven some wild roads. We get on this ferry and the gentleman says, "Pull over here and I'll put some air in your tire." And I'm like, "What?" I got a low tire, and he said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Pull up over here, we'll put some air in your tire for you." There he is, he's directing me over to the airline. I pull up there and he pumps up my tire for me, but you know that's not good enough. You know we're going to have to put the spare on, probably plug a tire. We're on the ferry. Now we're on the road. You can see the kind of roads. I'm going to change the tire right here. I stop, get my spare down, and I plug the hole in the tire that's bad. So there I am. I ream out the hole a little bit with the reamer, push in a plug that's coated with rubber cement, push that into the tire. There you go. Now this thing, we got to pull it straight out. You don't want to twist that. If you twist it, you'll break it. There, I'm cutting off the excess rubber there so it doesn't bump, although you sure wouldn't feel it on these roads. There, it's patched. Now you can see all the Dempster mud all over everything. That's good Dempster mud there. I'm pumping up the tire. It takes a good 20 minutes to pump it up with that little pump, and it gets plenty hot. This is the winch that holds the spare tire up. It broke, and I had to put the tire in with Bella. You can see how impressed she is. Driving south along the Dempster Highway in the Yukon, in the vicinity of Engineers Creek, we came upon some forest fires burning. The midnight sun made the smoke in the air seem quite spectacular. Tombstone Park, what a view. Well, we've had a spot of bother with the van. One of the heater hoses blew off and I lost the antifreeze. There's the battery switch to disconnect the batteries. We've got 2 batteries in here. This whole entire air intake is going to have to come off. I've taken that off many times. So we're going to get started on that. Use this 8mm little tiny 1/4-inch drive ratchet. We'll get things apart. Comes out pretty easy. There's 4 bolts holding it in. I'll pull this out and show you what we got. It's taken a little bit of undoing, but this plenum is about to come out now. Plenum or manifold. This is the thing that diverts water to the heater in the back. I had to remove the intake and that piece and that piece. There's some of my tools, but we're going to be saving some weight and some room in the van. Going to remove this fitting here. I've already drained all the coolant. The system's clean and dry. So we're going to remove all the excess Now bits. I'm pulling the bunk out of the back. There was an electric fold-up bunk, but just wasn't very comfortable. So we decided to tear the interior right out. This is going to go. This is a combination air conditioner, heating element, but it's not very effective. I pulled it out, scrapped it along with all these excess parts. Look at all that we took off. Now I'm getting ready to take everything off the floor. We're going to pull the carpet out. We're going to totally redo it. Look at the rust holes. Due to the way the bunk was put in, it was a conversion. They drilled holes and had a bunch of things bolted on. It caused rust. So I'm cutting the bolts off. I had a friend of mine come over and use the angle grinder. I do not like using angle grinders. I don't really like using skill saws either, but I had to do this. I'm cutting strips of plywood to fill in the gaps in the floor. Bella is not impressed. She said vacuum cleaners are bad, but that thing is worse. You can see the strips that I cut up here. Lots of patches that I put in to cover all the bolt holes and epoxied in the metal patches. Built some boxes over the wheel wells. Now, you know, I feel a bit bad about the space that we lost here, but we've covered them over as best as we could, insulated in there. Then I cut some tiles to cover over the plywood. We put first we smoothed out the floor with the plywood strips, then we put down a 1/2 inch of insulation. Then we put plywood over top of that, and here I am putting the tile over that. You can see the tiles all done. I got the Mr. Buddy heater running in there to help the tile dry. We sold this seat and made a new bunk. I actually got enough money for the old seat to cover building the bunk and putting the mattress in. Then we addressed the lights in the ceiling. Here I am pulling out the light bulbs out of the fixtures and replacing them with LEDs. This saved a tremendous amount of power. I connect all the lights together. See that? They all come on. So when we have power, all the interior lights are going to come on. And they shut off individually, so I don't have to worry about it. So now I'm going to pigtail the wires. I'm soldering the connections. There you can see the smoke coming off when I solder them. Soldering the connections and putting shrink wrap tubing on there. Here I am melting the shrink wrap with a little bit of a lighter, barbecue lighter. And the lights are good and they're safe and they're much more energy efficient. Here I'm getting ready. I'm cutting off some of these wires off. These are the wires that ran to the bunk. There were two high-powered circuits coming back here, 12 volts, but lots of power. And I'm going to use those to run a couple inverters in the back. At night we switch over to the coach battery and we use the inverter to power our laptop computer. There's a small inverter right there, and behind the fire extinguisher I've got a 300 watt inverter. Now we're working on the front end here. I wanted to free up all the adjustments so I can get an alignment done. Cleaning up all the adjustments, greasing everything. I actually at one point I wound up replacing all 4 ball joints and 1 brake caliper. So the thing is really safe and secure driving. It's hard work doing this, but you know, it's better to do it yourself than have to pay money when you, well, it's just better to do it yourself. Here I am freeing up the sleeves again, making sure everything's ready to adjust. Nuts are all freed up and everything. Now this is an adventure of a lifetime. We're in the Inyo Forest in Northern California. We're driving up. Here we're at about 8,000 feet, I think, taking a little break to let everything cool off because it's a hard climb. Here we are at 10,000 feet looking at 6,500-year-old trees, trees that are still alive, and they're 6,500 years old. Here you see one of the 6,500-year-old trees with a jet flying by. The old and the new for sure. Coming down the road here was very scary. I'm telling you, you look over the side and you know that if you go off the edge, that's the end of your vacation. My brakes actually started burning and smoke was coming off them. Look at that rotor. There's a hole right in the rotor where it just exploded. I found a nice shop in California and the guys fixed me right up. Here we're driving through Arches Park. What a drive, what a day, and look ahead, there's the Valley of the Garden of Eden. Here's our laptop in the van with the arm that we put in to support it. It's bolted onto the new bunk. And you can see the corner of the laptop where it got a little too close to the Mr. Buddy heater. Melted. That was a tragedy. Now I built this box here so that the dog crate will go underneath. Our porta potty for emergencies goes on top of there, and our cooler. Underneath the bunk we've got lots of storage. We had another problem. We're in Manitoba and I started having a problem when you went up a hill, the air conditioning would shut off. Turns out it was a vacuum tank leak, so we built a new vacuum tank. Here's a piece of pipe that I got from a dumpster and some fittings that I bought and some end caps. We drilled it out, screwed the fitting in, screwed it in, threaded in really, really tight. I put some silicone around over it, but I don't think that was necessary at all. Wayne's gluing the end caps on with this special glue, and I'm putting the tank in beside the rad with these cable ties. So I put it in there, and you can see that our vacuum is straightened right out. We're just fine. A nice solid engine vacuum. The other problem we were having is a noisy exhaust. Now this front pipe was cracked all to heck. Look at those holes. Wayne's welded it up quite a bit. He's getting ready. He's steel welding it with the torch with some special steel rod. When he's done with stuff, it doesn't leak anymore. That's it. The leaks will be fixed. Grinding it, looking for more holes. You can see some little tiny holes in there, and Wayne filled them all in. So that's going to take care of that pipe. I won't have to buy a new pipe for the front, which is about $600 to bring it in from Rock Auto. It's looking good. It's a really good job on this. This is the second time the van's broken down in Wayne's yard, and he's helped me out both times. Once it was the belt tensioner. Here you can see we're heating up this to get this bolt out of the manifold. This is the driver's side manifold, and we'd already replaced the gasket on this before. The passenger side manifold though was actually cracked, and here Wayne is heating up the bolts to get them out, heating them up with a big torch, and we're trying to get the bolt studs out. A bunch of them broke off, and we had devil's own time fixing it. You can see there we're drilling that one out. Some of the clamps were broken. Here's the manifold broken clear in half. Look at that. And that was broken for quite some time. It'd been leaking for a long time. There's the new manifold in, and we're back on the road again. We're just having a great trip. We were down for about 3 weeks, so I was right ready to get on the road again and start looking for greener pastures, looking for photographs. Wow, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Monument Valley and the Mittens, sunrise. Bridges of Madison County. Wow, Bella was quite impressed with these bridges. Then we went to Theodore Roosevelt Park, and this was the mascot there. Grand Tetons, wow. Yosemite Park, El Capitan and Half Dome. Glacier Park, what a nice drive. Yellowstone Park and Old Faithful. A rainforest in Oregon. Here we are on Ruby Beach watching the sun go down. Gibson's Landing and Molly's Reach. Now we're on Vancouver Island, and I've been having some noise. I decided to change the exhaust manifold gasket, and I did it right here with this gentleman here. He was feeding the pigeons. It took me 2 hours to pull the manifold off and put the new gasket on. I said that working on sharp gravel sped me up quite a bit. This fella was a great guy. He was there like 2 or 3 times feeding the pigeons. Here's the eagles. Wow, I had a great time photographing the eagles on Vancouver Island, chasing them all over a few different beaches. It was just a wonderful place to be. That's where we parked up. It's beautiful here, Comox Beach. Frying up some oysters that we got from Union Bay. These are Union Bay oysters, and they're just delicious. Fried them up in butter and some bacon. Look at that. Wow. Beautiful. There I am at Lake Moraine, Vulcan, Alberta. We had a great time in Vulcan photographing this, and Mary put this little composite together. The Columbia ice fields in Alberta, and look at the flora. Now here we are camped up near St. Joseph's Island. We came back home and we decided to address the problems with the rocker panels on the van. This was an American van, so it doesn't have so much rust as you would expect. But this rust here is pretty bad due to the flares on the van. So Frank's going to cut that out and weld some patches over that, and that's going to take care of the problems here. I'll get it undercoated with oil spray again when it's done. But it's going to be solid patches put over there. Frank cuts things out with the grinder, welds them in. Now we're back on the road. The van's back together. We're on a ferry here headed to Wolf Island. This is a ferry you just drive on. Again, it's a free ferry. You don't have to pay. You just pull up. So here I am sea kayaking in New Brunswick, getting some shots there. Since we got the van, I've been sea kayaking and taking pictures all over various places. This was such fun. Brian stopped paddling for a little bit so I could get some shots. Now here we are in Ontario with grain fields and solar power and wind power, all working together. Look at that. Thanks for visiting Bella's Vistas. Please like and subscribe. Come on.